Hello, everybody. Running a little bit behind on the PowerPoint for transference and transparency. Super, super important concepts. So here at the tail end of the module, but we're going to get it in. So you can watch this at any time. Just put me in the background. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up the PowerPoint here to share with you. And we are looking at chapter 7. Again, we're at the tail end of module 7. And chapter 7 in the Yalom textbook, that big, huge textbook, Transference and Transparency. We keep hearing about the role of a therapist, what we must do. So if it feels like, oh my gosh, this is a lot of pressure, I have a huge role, yes and no. But in this case, we are making the transition from what the therapist must do in the group to how the therapist must be. Okay, what role do you play, if any? How honest can you be? How much transparency can you permit yourself to have? What does that look like? How does your transparency play out in the group process? Before we talk a little bit more about transparency, I want to bring up the concept of transference. Attitudes toward the therapist that had been transferred from earlier attitudes toward important figures in the client's life, maybe even called false connections, new additions of old impulses. If you've heard a client or a group member talk bits and pieces around the how overbearing their dad was growing up, and it's really hard to communicate with their dad because they can be overbearing, and the client says to you, "You remind me of my dad." Wow, this would be big, right? Holy crap. I remind you of your dad and he's overbearing, on and on and on. We're taking it in. This could be a false connection. Not always. We may have to reality test, but what is it that I'm doing as the leader, or even other members are doing member to member, that those attitudes have been transferred on to the therapist? Countertransference, and it might say it later in the presentation, I can't remember. Countertransference is those attitudes that we have as therapists transferred onto our clients, okay? We are human as well. So people can bring up all sorts of feelings. We can be reminded. Now, we might not say, whoa, you remind me of my dad. We may just have to really watch how we treat that member. But if we've had an overbearing dad and an overbearing group member, we have to watch what we say. We're going to make sure we don't single that person out or ignore them just because our own countertransference is coming up. So our attitudes that we transfer onto the clients and the group members. This happens in individual sessions as well. Okay, transference and countertransference can come about in both individual and group therapy. The relationship, so the curative factor in both individual and group therapy, it requires the therapist's authentic engagement and attunement to the client's internal, emotional, and subjective experiences. Transference distortions, clients perceiving the therapist incorrectly. Attitudes that may have been carried forward from parental authority, dependency, spiritual reference, such as God or higher power, autonomy, and rebellion, all of which are personified in the therapist. Okay, so there could be some distorted perceptions of us, maybe not always, but for the leader of the group, are we, kind of like the parent, directing them, trying to build them up or trying to, make them see something and not, hope you see this, I'm going to show you, but just trying to bring to light or illuminate the process that might be keeping them stuck, which might be distorted realities of how the individuals or clients perceive us. Negative transference. So members of a group may challenge the leader continuously. Maybe the therapist is distrusted misunderstood, and can be treated like an enemy. I'm thinking of universality here, in addition to negative transference, maybe in a group where the individuals are mandated to attend. If you don't come to 12 group sessions once a week, you might not go up for parole, or you might not get out of incarceration. We need to see that you are learning skills, managing your anger. So you're going to need to come. This might be when the therapist is distrusted. Here we are, we're made to be here. Why do you want to be here, group leader? There might be some misunderstanding. It might be that we're trying to not overly relay, but let the members know, I want to be here. Maybe you're gonna have to earn their trust, or, tell me what it's like to be in here, whatever it looks like, to try to not be treated like an enemy. The universality piece is maybe all of the individuals who are in that group feel like maybe they're misunderstood. Okay. Maybe they feel like, wow, everybody in here knows what it's like to be incarcerated for domestic violence. I don't know if I can trust that leader. Are they in here? Are they a former offender? Whether yes, whether no, we are trying to do our best to instill some sort of hope and get the process moving. Consensual validation. The therapist may encourage a client to validate his or her impressions of the therapist against those of the other members. What this would look like. If a member were to say, I just feel like you rush us through conflict. I feel like we start to kind of engage and the tension gets a little higher, and you say, all right, it's time for a break. Or like, okay, let's think of different ways to communicate. What's my relationship with conflict? That might be when you put it back on the group. Hey, thanks for that feedback. Are other individuals feeling that way? Okay. Are other individuals feeling like I pushed through and not engaging in conflict? Heroic transparency. So a humanistic attitude to therapy in which the client is considered a full collaborator in the therapeutic venture. To kind of break this down, heroic transparency, just how much an individual shares. What do their boundaries look like? Is that too much information? And again, as the leader, we're constantly navigating. We need people to share, but whoa, there's going to be a time and a place for you to just close that. What's the need for you to just close that right now, to be so transparent? Not that a person's necessarily trying to be a hero in the sense of like, I'm going to save the group, but maybe a person feels like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and drop that out there, maybe to kind of fully collaborate with the therapeutic venture. So not right or wrong, but really looking at sometimes maybe the timing of a disclosure or transparency. And disclosure. So this is just, everybody has different opinions on disclosure of what they think a therapist should do. So Yalom says that therapists need to reveal relevant material about themselves that helps the group members realize that the therapist can understand and empathize with what the clients experience. Really depends on who you are working with, in what context, and what type of group it is. So this is going to look different, right? If you are a survivor of sexual assault and you are leading a survivor of sexual assault group, that's the name of it. And it's known that you are a survivor. This might be one of the rules or the norms where we know the leader is going to share maybe their story at some point, or maybe they kick off the group with sharing their story. So really looking at what are the norms of the agency of this type of process group, and just overall navigating it just carefully, okay? Just really carefully. Key points of transference. It absolutely occurs in therapy groups. It's ever present and can radically influence the nature of the group discourse, okay? Without an appreciation of transference and what it brings up or how it manifests, the therapist will not be able to understand fully the process of the group. So remember last time we talked about process illumination and the here and now. This is where we say we want those transference distortions or negative distortions. We want those played out in the here and now to push the process of the group. So as you know, the process, we're making it seem, we're illuminating what's underneath that. And sometimes that is all goes back to transference. Somebody is reminding somebody of somebody else. Something that's happening right now in the moment is reminding somebody of a situation that happened way back. Yalom says it's the then and the there, bringing it to the here and now. Let's look at the fear that's coming in. What's coming up? Well, this situation gave me a lot of fear. I'm having some negative feelings about this confrontation. It just feels unhealthy. It feels like it's going nowhere, and people are starting to get a little bit dialed up. Okay. All right. Where in the past or the then and the there has that occurred that's had you back down or not advocate for yourself? Let's talk about that. Let's use this group process to kind of talk about how you communicate or how you want to advocate for yourself or how you want to set boundaries with families around the holidays. Therapists who ignore transference considerations may seriously misunderstand some of the transactions and confuse rather than guide the group members. Therapists who attend only to the transference aspects of their relationship with their members may fail to relate authentically to them. Basically, if we don't take it next level. Let's look at that. What is coming up for you now? Okay, so ignoring transference might look like we just don't even make any connection between reminding somebody of their overbearing dad. We're just, oh, thank you for giving me that feedback. Well, shutting it down or ignoring it, even though acknowledging it might mean that that person doesn't get to work through what it is that's happened with their parent, what have you. Or we don't want to hear what that might be that we are doing. That's okay. We're human. So if we only attend to the transference aspects and not go a little bit deeper with what's underneath that, give us some examples. How can we help you with this current situation? We might fail to relate authentically to the individuals. And again, bringing it back to the here and the now. Key points of transference. There are clients whose therapy hinges on the resolution of transference distortion. Kind of goes back to that. Oh my gosh, it's a lot of pressure. Their therapy hinges. I don't know if it's going to necessarily destroy somebody's life, but being in this group process definitely can help somebody with their interpersonal skills and relationships. And that ideally would love to be somewhat maybe resolved in the group therapy process or individual therapy. There are others whose improvement will depend on interpersonal learning stemming from work, not with the therapist, but with another member around such issues like competition, exploitation, or maybe sexual and intimacy conflicts. Boom. Okay. Here we are competing for this certain person in the group's attention. I can't share the attention with you. I need that member all to myself. What happened in the past? When did having to share the attention, how'd that hurt you? How is that showing up now? Sexual attraction, right? Or intimacy, maybe conflicts. When you're in the group process, you can kind of see people in their vulnerable states or in situations. And maybe this is attracted to you, maybe it's not attractive to you. But if you are needing a client, if you are needing someone in your life personally to be more intimate, emotionally, physically, or sexually, what can happen is it can come up in the group process where we have a transference. This person in the group we want that type of person in our personal life is our, partner, let's say, physical, emotional, sexual, what have you. We need to look at that in the group. What about that person is desirable? Could there be a false sense of connection based on how vulnerable that other member is? And that's attractive. Okay. Do you want to communicate with your partner or loved one about this type of attraction and maybe work with them on what this could look like? There are many clients who choose alternative therapeutic pathways in the group and derive their primary benefit from other therapeutic factors entirely. So going back to those therapeutic factors, universality, installation of hope, cohesion, didactic instruction, vicarious learning, those might be a lot more beneficial than transference. That's okay. We want somebody to get something out of the group. So anything at this point sometimes can be positive. Transference distortions between group members can be worked with as effectively and perhaps even more effectively than transference reactions to the therapist. It might be that we are all equal players in this game when we're all the group members. So I might feel a lot more comfortable confronting a group member. Hey, that reminded me of my overbearing parent, what you just said. Since we are peers, again, we feel safer confronting a peer versus challenging the group leader. Not always. We do see that come up, like we just said. Attitudes toward the therapist are not all transferred based. Many are reality based, and others are irrational, but flow from other sources of irrationality inherent in the dynamics of the group. Okay. All the interweavings, right? All the dynamics and how they play out. Overlap, the undertones. Yeah, maybe undertones. What's underneath? By maintaining flexibility, you make good therapeutic use of these irrational attitudes towards you, let's say, without at the same time neglecting your many other functions in the group. How do I make use of these attitudes? Maybe irrational or rational. How do I keep going and keep running this group knowing someone maybe feels that way about me? Flexibility. All right, we got to hammer this out right now, which means we're going to delay the topic. Or here's why we can't get to that today. We have to continue on. Maybe we have a further discussion outside the group, which would require some flexibility. Transference in the therapy group. Clients generally, Yalom says, perceive the therapist incorrectly, sometimes before beginning therapy. Oh, they're going to be a know-it-all. They've been there, done that. They're going to have all the advice. They're going to want to solve all the problems. Maybe, but not always. Maybe even hardly ever. So if you come in thinking there's going to be a power differential, maybe don't share. So we're working really hard to show that we're human and we know how to lead a group. Okay, that we're not trying to size everybody up. We're not trying to play I've heard some people like, you're just trying to play God, especially if we are part of the determining outcome of somebody's care out of the inpatient hospital, out of prison, coming off parole, getting their children back, so on and so forth. Seating patterns often reveal some of the complex and powerful feelings towards the leader. Maybe they attempt to send far away from the leader. Okay, this just could be circumstance and mean nothing. Or there's always an empty seat next to the leader. Does the leader push back that empty chair or do we leave it there? I don't know. What would you do? I might leave it there and not call any attention to it, just to kind of say, anyone is welcome to sit there. I'm not going to push it out of the circle. Or I may push it back just because I don't feel like dealing with what everybody might be thinking if there's the empty chair. Freud suggests that group cohesiveness, curiously, derives from the universal wish to be the favorite of the leader and the mutual identifications the group members make with the idealized leader. So going back to what Freud says, just maybe that inherent need for acceptance, which sometimes universally might mean want to be loved, and maybe we weren't loved growing up or how we perceived being loved. Here we are with a leader that is offering us care. Maybe it feels good to be the favorite. If the leader is saying, yeah, great insight, or tell us more about that. How'd you come to that conclusion? How'd your family members react? All of a sudden it's like, I identify as a meaningful part of the group. I wonder what that would look like transferred over into my family life or personal relationships. I feel like what I have to say or do, I've never felt valued before. And so sometimes there's sort of this idealistic view of the leader as being maybe a caregiver or maybe even parent. As a result of transference, the therapy group may impute superhuman powers to the leaders. It might be that the therapist's words are given more weight and wisdom than they actually carry. We have to really, really watch what we say. If we are with a group of very impressionable humans who are very susceptible to being hurt or re-traumatized, we want to be very careful when offering any type of feedback. Okay? Saying something like, maybe take a minute to think a little deeper on that. Oh, remember, gosh, maybe I wasn't as introspective as I have been. Oh my goodness. Maybe we ask, what more do you think about that? Tell me what's coming up when you think about that conversation. Feel free to keep going. Keep going. Let me know what's coming up. That could be a way of getting information without putting more weight on our opinion. And then sometimes wisdom. Well, I think if you were just to have that conversation, just have it out, I think your family would take you seriously. What happens when somebody goes and has a really hard conversation, they really assert themselves, and it doesn't go well? They are then isolated from their family. This can be really lonely, right? We did what the leader and the authoritative figure told us, and it backfired. I feel really lonely. I did what the leader said, and it didn't go well. That's we have to watch, and not in a I know what's best for you, but maybe you've seen people have conversations around boundaries. And so you're just suggesting, we have to reframe it. Have you ever tried, sitting in a circle with your family? Or have you ever talked with any of your friends that have similar families? What did they do? Opening up to the group. Yeah, holidays are coming. Is anybody going to have a boundaried conversation about not traveling in for the holidays? And this causing a major, major disruption. Let's bring it into the here and now without judgment to make everybody feel safe and welcome, but that what they have to offer matters. Negative transference. Oops. Members may also challenge the leader continuously. Again, going back to that distrust, maybe being treated like the enemy because that person decides what's going to happen. That person gets to dictate whether or not we get out of jail. That person's going to write a note in my chart that's going to say I can get out of Parthenon Pavilion. That's part of it. That is part of the process. That's going to happen. That is okay. We cannot be everything to everybody. We cannot be understood by everybody. We cannot be trusted by everybody. We cannot be everybody's, not that you're going to be their best friend, but not the enemy, right? Part of the process is doing our best to listen. Yeah. Thank you for pointing out that you don't feel like you can trust me in this situation. How do others feel? Someone raises their hand. Well, if you've never lost your child to the Department of Children's Services, how can you sit here and lead this group on parenting skills when you've never had your parenting skills challenged? Me as the leader. Yeah. I can see how that might be really painful to wonder, what experience do I have with that? Do I think differently of you? Just because I've never had my kids taken away. Yeah, that must feel You could put it back out. How does that feel? Expand on that. Also, what can I do differently? Negative transference of this kind may be enacted powerfully. Not retaliating with countertransference is essential in retaining a therapeutic posture. Negative transference. Something's coming up with us, the leader. Man, that person is really challenging me. They take issue with everything I say. I feel like I have to prove everything I do, everything I say all the time. I'm tired of it. I'm not going to pay attention to them. Maybe that person starts to talk and we say, oh, hang on, that person had their hand up. Shut them down. Wait one more second. I want to hear from so-and-so. We just don't even call on them. We're afraid to be challenged. That we're human, right? So our countertransference is they're out to get me. That member wants to see me fail. They want to see me being taken down, right? We're going to show you, all of us members are going to show you that you can't be trusted. We cannot walk into every group being trusted, understood, and respected. Oftentimes, we have to earn it. Sometimes we earn it quickly. Sometimes we never earn it. Sometimes it takes a while of just showing up, saying, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Maybe we are working in an agency where I can't lead this group. This is too much. I rub them the wrong way. Another social worker steps in. That could be somebody leaves the agency. That could just be, I'm not the right fit. I got to bow out. That's okay. But if group members see a constant rotation of leadership and kind of start to pick on a theme of, yep, they all never understand us. They just can't be here. They can't be here for us. They just can't take the heat. Then it doesn't necessarily make or break the experience, but it could take a while, different leaders, to get back on the same page and get the group rocking and rolling. Increase therapist transference. Therapists help the clients confirm or disconfirm their impressions of the therapist by gradually revealing more about themselves. We use our transparency, depending on the situation, and self-disclosure to maintain a therapeutic position with our clients that also balances us in a way or in a position midway between the client's transference and its therapeutic disconfirmation. As the group progresses, maybe develops cohesion, maybe goes further in the stages of development, you might begin to interact more personally with each of the members maybe as a whole, and it might be harder for those members to maintain the early stereotypes they had projected on the leader. Well, they're just a know-it-all. Well, we do come as the leader, hopefully knowing at least a little bit about it. But as we maybe become more human, someone experiences, it's a grief group and you've never lost maybe a parent. You're just there to lead. And you say, gosh, this reminds me of my cousin and the story that she told. Thank you for going a little deeper with your grief and talking about anger. I wonder if my cousin was angry. We've put it out there that we've seen this interaction before. Or maybe we say, like Yalom did in the gift of therapy, yeah, my wife passed away. It was really hard, but I'm back to leading the group. I think he was leading a grief group at the time. But again, depending on the clients or the group members, we have to really be careful how transparent we are, okay? Things we are saying and keeping boundaries around revealing too much might make individuals feel uncomfortable. Dang, they got a lot going on. They're fumbling the ball just like we are. Their process is incomplete. They've not, oh my goodness. We've got the captain of the ship suddenly trying to row along with us. That's okay. But just making sure that what we say doesn't have the members maybe wanting to take care of us. Okay. We're not among the rank per se. Not that we're trying to be the captain, but now we have to take care of her. The leader's sobbing. Maybe you're having a human moment and you just say, hey, yeah, I'm crying. My empathy is coming up right now. And how my empathy plays out is just crying. I don't need anybody to take care of me. I'm okay. I'm okay. That would be an example of a nonverbal transference. Oh my gosh, you're reminding me of my mom. I said hard things. My mom started crying. So also we had to take care of her. Oh my gosh, the leader. You're supposed to be taking care of us. Now you're crying. Reminds me of my mom. I don't want to talk anymore. I don't want to be here. I don't want to have to take care of the leader. I spent my whole life pulling away from taking care of somebody that I wanted to be taken, who I wanted to take care of me. All the things, right? All the things. The effects of transparency. Yalom is sort of all over the place with this, but the view holds that the therapist must remain relatively anonymous or opaque, maybe to foster the development of unrealistic feelings towards him or her or them. Yalom feels that other therapeutic factors are of equal or greater importance, and that the therapist who judicially uses his, her, or their own person increases the therapeutic power of the group by encouraging the development of these factors. Okay. I'm hopeful too. I'm using a therapeutic factor. I'm hopeful that we're all going to learn from each other. I'm hopeful that as the leader, I'll learn a new tool or a new skill. I am open to learning more about your family system. I can't come from a family as well. Those systems can be messy. I'm wondering what that looks like in the group process to hear more about your family system. Making errors is commonplace. It's what is done with that error that is often critical in therapy. What do? We acknowledge it. Maybe we say, hey, last week, I got my feathers ruffled. Obviously, as pointed out, I felt challenged. I pushed back a little, and how I pushed back was to just not say anything. Some call that passive reaction. But I just decided that, you know what? If what I'm saying is wrong, I'm just not going to say anything at all. I made a mistake. I don't like that my ego got in the way. Truth be told, I'm really nervous to lead this group. As you all know, I've never been incarcerated. I feel a little bit guilty leading a group of individuals who are in a community, a system that I've never been a part of. And I don't want to be seen as the expert on a totally different situation than those who I'm leading. I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to listen. I want to be corrected. I want to be told ways I can do better. When we know better, we do better. That can be a huge, powerful piece of transparency. When we say, hey, I am open to feedback. Okay. I just learned this today, and I thought it was really interesting. We had a speaker come talk about EMDR, and she started her presentation. Before she started it, she said, and she had just learned, she said that her intent is not to offend anybody with a microaggressive statement, macroaggressive statement. She did not want to seem ever insensitive. And even though her best intention was to be completely mindful of her words or phrases, she could still make a mistake. She could still offend somebody. She invited those of us in the audience to raise our hand and say, ouch, that hurt. She would say, oops, I'm very sorry I hurt you. Do you feel comfortable telling me more about that? What can I do differently? She called it the ouch and the oops method. And I thought that was really, I don't know, I really like that, just resonated with me. When we are in a power of authority and we kind of go ahead and make it commonplace that Our intention is not to offend, say something that might be perceived as X, Y, or Z, right? We all have a fear. I'm going to offend somebody. I'm going to say something that is stupid. It's going to hurt somebody and offend somebody. And then I just look like an idiot. Maybe you look like an idiot. Maybe you hurt somebody. Maybe you offended somebody. But maybe with setting this norm, and it can be among the group, right? Or rule. Hey, all of us could be a part of this. Ouch. That didn't sit right with me. Oops. How can I help? Let's rewind it a bit. Let's look at that and see what that looks like. How can it move us forward? Receiving feedback. Again, we just talked a lot about this. Consider it, respond to it appropriately. If you need to digest it, thank you for all of that feedback. I'm going to absorb it. I'm going to soak it in and really be mindful of my behavior. So this whole entire week, I'm writing down the feedback that I've given, trying to maybe change my approach to leadership or reality testing. Yeah, I do a lot of psychoeducation and telling people what works and what doesn't work because this is a psychoeducation group. I feel like you just talk the whole time and tell us how to be mindful parents or intentional parents. Yeah, absolutely. A reminder that this is a psychoeducation group, but I would love to make more room for real life experiences. I'm going to carve out 20 minutes or 15 minutes to where I'm not doing all the expert education, but taking the feedback you've given, pulling back and changing the pace a little bit. Does this feedback fit? Does it click with your internal experience? Again, the group members, you're checking in. Everybody else feel that way? Yeah, you run from conflict. You shut it down. You seem really nervous anytime it seems like people don't agree or are about to maybe get a little heated. We all have a different definition of what we think it looks like to be heated, right? So you just shut it down. Like, yeah, that actually kind of adds up. Yeah, in past experiences in my family, when the water starts to boil, we don't touch the pot, we run away. Or we quickly put the lid back on the pot so it doesn't boil over and someone doesn't get hurt. Because maybe we've never had a successful dialogue where differing opinions can be heard. Maybe we come to a level of agree to disagree and we all go back to having dinner. Nobody threw the spoon of mashed potatoes across the wall. But as a leader, we're human too. And that's where when we our own transference or counter transference onto the group, right? The group is making me feel uncomfortable. I'm feeling like a little kid. They're making me feel like a little kid. They're making me feel less than. What's coming up? Can I check this with internal experiences that I've had in the past? Therapist disclosure. Sometimes we use this to take it a little deeper. The members are not talking. And we use an example of, I'm going to shift the pattern into a more sensitive direction. I'm going to say, okay, it's about the time to say, because I've done it before. It's the appropriate time to do. Yeah, you're working with a bunch of fifth graders. Yeah, I was in fifth grade once. Really, you're too old for that. But I remember a time on the recess ground when someone said something that hurt my feelings so badly. I lost my breath and I ran away. I wasn't comfortable advocating for myself. Now that I'm an old dinosaur, I've worked a lot on stating how I feel. That might not always work on the recess ground, but we could practice stating how you feel. This is a safe space. If somebody hurts your feelings, what would you say? Right? What would you say to that person? Because when I was on the recess ground, I ran away. I'm okay now, but I wish I'd had a group like this. This is really cool. You all are sharing. As an adult, as a dinosaur, I'm learning a lot. Sometimes, ideally, self-disclosure can increase the cohesiveness twofold. Oftentimes, we shrink away because we think of so many reasons not to. So we don't necessarily want to provide an extensive list of details, historic personal details, but maybe revelations that are helpful. And I've often thought about when it comes to transparency or disclosure, is this for the group or is this for me? Do I need to talk about something? And I feel like, all right, I'm going to be among the members. Okay, well, this might not be the time and the place. This could make individuals feel uncomfortable. Also, depending on the group, sometimes if we share, yeah, I was bullied on the recess ground, and the first 6 times it happened with the same person because they thought they could run me over, I worked with a guidance counselor or a teacher, and I found my voice. And all I said was, don't speak to me that way. And then I ran away. No, or you're not going to speak to me like that. I advocated for myself. Okay, so maybe kind of tying up the loose ends, as I like to call it, but just sort of like, here was the resolution or outcome, big or small. If the point is advocate for yourself, what did that look like? The key question, does it further the work? Whether or not to self-disclose in a therapeutic setting, does it further the process? Where can this disclosure take the group? Where can it pull it back? And being really mindful of, I'm having a really hard day. All the stuff I've been working on has not worked. I feel like I could process this with the members. Might not be the time or the place, depending on the type of the group. Ooh, a lot of information, a lot to think about, a lot of dynamics at play, a lot of different conversation styles, lots of things to be aware of. We can make mistakes. We might not notice somebody is saying, you remind me of my dad. And we might be like, well, okay, maybe they've been very passive about their dad's behavior in the, okay, tell me more about it. He's overbearing, rude, bully. Oh, snap. Okay. You know, constantly learning. We make mistakes and we learn from them. We grow from them. This is why supervision and consultation can be really important. Hey, all the members today, saying this to your supervisor, all the members said that I don't take feedback well. I get a little bit defensive. Your supervisor might say, does that check out? Is your ego at play? Are you afraid of not looking like the capable leader? So if you were to say, yeah, I've been doing that. You're right, man. I try to like move us along too quickly. What are you going to do differently? How are you going to self-assess and do things the same? If we're reality testing, it's like, no, that's more of an interpersonal skill with that individual, or making the changes in order to simply humble yourself. All right. That's all I've got on transference and transparency. Have a wonderful day. I hope you're well.